And then the best announcement of Summer Games Fest was that Alan Wake, Sam Lake came out in this cute ass little puffy blue shirt. He
did
so
a little
cute.
dance. He did
a little dance.
Show me the champion of light.
He even played a short audio clip so he could do it for a second. And he did it. He came out and he was like, "Oh, we know you really want to see DLC." Looks at Pretend, watch. It comes out tomorrow. And then we just got the first DLC for Alan Wake. And it's so freaking good.
Yeah, the first DLC being like, they could have released this as 3 DLCs.
They could have.
It felt like a treat that I just got to play them all at the same time.
I know, yeah. So it's called Night Springs. It's 3 episodes. They were each, I don't know if it's a spoiler to say how long they were. Maybe.
No.
It's like
45 minutes long.
45 minutes, an hour each. And they were all great. But then there was one in particular that I was just absolutely wanting to write a dissertation afterwards level energy. I just love what they do there so much. And I think these things are so fun is because they're having fun. You can tell they're having so much freaking fun making this stuff. And it translates so well, not just because we see Sam Lakes in there, like actually seeming like he's having fun with Sean in that 3rd episode, but because everything just radiates like, I just hope this studio's around forever because they know what they're doing now and they've found their stride and they're just sprinting. And it's so fun to see that, especially we just played Max Payne, the first one for Something Rotten recently, to see that little nugget of the origins.
Yeah, aren't you glad you did that?
Yeah.
I was like screaming like, oh my God, they put Max Payne in this.
The freaking webcomic stuff that came up that was in Max Payne too, that was in the 3rd episode of this. Oh, so good. But let's backtrack we can talk about them episode by episode. So episode 1.
Okay, and so how much are we talking about these? Are we spoiling them?
I want to, but I don't want to deter people.
I feel like we should just spoil. They're so short. I kind of
like
the interesting thing about them would be spoilers.
That's true. Okay, we're 40 minutes into Bonus Pod. If you don't want to hear, well, all that we're talking about the rest of this is just going to be spoiling this stuff. Mini max spoilers of Alan Wake DLC. Sorry, but you have to bounce now if you don't want to hear that, because we do just need to chat about it, I think. It warrants that kind of open-ended discussion instead of just barely skimming it. So goodbye, everybody who doesn't want to hear. Hello, everybody who wants to hear. The Rose one. What did you think of that one? The very first one?
I mean, that one is the most purely comedic by far. And I was just so... I really liked... well, first off, Werlin Dor does such a good job of introducing all of these, and obviously he is doing so. It's like Night Springs is just it is just the Twilight Zone, you know, like it is. They're doing like a Rod Sterling style like introduction to each one, where he's like, imagine, if you will, a small town where a woman is obsessed with a writer. Like then, so this first one, what I found was so funny is that they didn't need to like spell out for you exactly what was going on. You just kind of were able to realize it, where you're playing as what's her name?
Rose.
You're playing as Rose. And who's like the waitress in town, and you start as the waitress, and you're just going through, and everyone is just like so in love with you, and they're like, "Hey Rose, I heard that your writer's fan page just won best fan page in the world. How do you do it?" And she's like, "I guess I'm just really talented and I work really hard." And like everything is just
so delusional.
Like, it is just the fan fiction version of her life.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she gets a call from the writer saying that he needs help, and she goes into her back room where she has 12 shotguns and 12 rifles and straps them on. And then it's also weirdly the most combat heavy one. Yeah. Where you're just going around headshotting dudes and tracking down you meet the writer's brother, who's like
who's Scratch,
evil. Yeah, but it's like, he doesn't introduce himself as Scratch. He's just like the writer's brother, and he's just kind of like he's like an evil greaser. And yeah, you just kind of live out this like fantasy of hers where you fight through it. At the end, You fight Scratch. He has the line, "My motorcycle is also a werewolf."
That's gotta be in our best moments. I died. It's like, and also, my motorcycle is a werewolf. Arr! And then the motorcycle just turns into this white wolf that also starts fighting you. I also died so when funny. You're like, you're just, she starts listing all this stuff. She's like, I'm gonna scold you, and starts like telling him what awful person he is. He's like, quiet, I don't want to be seen. And he's like, no.
I don't. Yeah. It's so funny. I mean, and I also really like, throughout all these, I like that they basically remove all difficulty from the game. That, and I mean, in this, you have like literally hundreds of rounds of bullets ammunition. You have a fully automatic shotgun, like, and a rifle.
Yeah,
you can just do whatever. And so they are these kind of like power fantasies, which makes sense because like she's writing this story for herself. Yeah, basically. Yeah, and then at the end, you find some version of Alan, and he cracks a big ol' smile that looks like someone put like a face app smile on Alan Wake, and it's so funny. And yeah, it's like, this one I don't feel like is particularly deep, but I enjoyed it the whole time.
It's so fun. It's just purely fun. They wanted to give us how would it feel to be Rose getting everything she ever wanted? Because Rose is such an interesting character in Alan Wake 2, because I really think they leave it up in the air if Rose is just a crazy, obsessed girl, or the Dark Place has affected Rose in a certain way. And I don't know which one it is, and I think that's the fun. Is she just a stalker and she happens to show up when Alan needs her? Or is she using the Dark Place and the presence within her? Because in Alan Wake 1, she gets like attacked by the dark presence and then is different afterwards. But part of me just thinks, I think Rose is just freaking crazy. I mean, she did have his standee in the diner when we first meet her before she gets attacked, so she was slightly stalkerish to begin with. But there are so many little nuances, like everything's pink in the world, and I think it's because she has rose-colored glasses on, I think is the joke they're trying to make. So she's just completely deluded by love and infatuation that everything's cheery. You know, when she dodges, she goes, hee hee hee, and like giggles a little bit, and you're just like, what is happening? When you reload her gun, she's like, my gun's really hungry, and like shoves the bullets in. It was so, and I noticed that the UI was really trying to make me hold down R2 to shoot. They're like, don't worry about bullets. This is an automated shotgun. Remember? Right. It told me 3 or 4 times when I was because I'm used to Alan Wake 2 is be careful with my ammo. Don't shoot if you don't need to. And the UI would remind me, like, remember, you have an automated shotgun. Hold down R2 for God's sakes. Like, that's what this is supposed to be. And then, and then it's fun that you don't know if this is just a little dumb thing or if this is actually happening in lore, and this is like one of Alan's attempts to escape via writing what if Rose got to me via fanfic or something. Or I even went back and started it over just to see, at the start of each one, it says teleplay by Alan Wake, hosted by Warland Dorr. And I was like, I wonder if the first one's teleplay by Rose. Like if Rose was the one who wrote that and then it became reality via the Dark Place. So I even went back to check. It does say Alan wrote it, but I don't know. It just, it could be real.
And it's like, or it's Alan, writing from like, she is the kind of, Stephen King's Misery is the book about like, the person who's obsessed with the writer's character, like trapping him, and it's like, maybe Alan is writing this from her perspective, whatever. It's these kind of thought experiments that you can just kind of go forever with this game. Because
that's what American Nightmare was like. Like the first DLC for Alan Wake, American Nightmare, was one of his attempts to escape that didn't work.
Right.
So it would track that maybe that's what these are too. But of course, the whole fun of it is not knowing.
He writes that she's rescuing him. Yeah, that would be very funny.
Because like that is potentially a narrative that could work because she has shown the agency to want to save him. You know how everything has to be based in some pseudo purpose, and Sam Lake has a phrase for it. I can't remember it now, but it's like he can't just write and then I was saved and walk out of the Dark Place. It has to narratively follow a through line that's believable and real. They have a phrase for it in Remedy that I can't remember, but that would be one that like tracks.
Yeah.
Then the second one, we got to be frickin' Jesse Fate, and hell yeah, I was so excited. So this one,
that
you
was
go
their
back.
big like mic drop trailer moment.
Yes.
Was like, oh baby, Jesse's back.
Jesse's back. Also, the music in between the Night Spring song. I listen to that all the time in my car anyways, but oh my
the one
god.
that's like Space Invader.
Yeah, so good. I was joking, like, gonna tell my sister this is a Sabrina Carpenter song, so she'll let me play it in the car this summer.
It sounds like a Dua Lipa song.
It
I mean,
does.
it really is a bop.
It's a bop. It sounds like it could be on the radio if you just ignored how silly the the lyrics are.
Radio songs are silly too.
That's true. There's songs about hula hoops, and that's all it is. It's just a song about a hula hoop. So if that can go on the radio, this can. I liked the second one. It was probably my least favorite of the three, but I still liked it. It was just really cool to be Jessie again in this specific world where she doesn't have her powers, I guess, because the whole point of Control is like,
yeah,
she can fly, she can zoot around. It's a whole power fantasy sort of thing. You're just unstoppable.
I wanted to ask you about this one because I have not played Control since it came out, and I did not play the DLC for it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not clear where Jessie is as a character right now. Like, when she was saying, like, my brother has been, like, kidnapped by, you know, a secret government agency.
Yeah.
I was like, was that part of Control that I forgot? I mean, I know she was looking for her brother within the plot, but like,
yeah,
it wasn't clear to me whether she was in that role, like the director of the Federal Bureau of Control, or if this was like some other reality where she was not that.
It was giving pre-Control vibes, like, because she has Polaris, who she has at the start of Control 2, which is that her inside her brain corporeal girlfriend, I guess, you know, like, whatever. And, you know, yeah, she's still looking for Dylan, and she doesn't have any of her powers. So I was leaning more towards either this isn't the Jessie we've played as, and it's some multiverse Jessie who hasn't done all that stuff yet, or it's our Jessie and she just hasn't gone through the events of Control. Because the first thing they hit you with is a locked gate, which in Control she could just fly over if she wanted to, and she doesn't. She's like, how am I going to get in here? So I think maybe that was their way of saying she has none of her powers, get used to it, just walk around. And it would make sense for her to be pre all the events of Control.
Yeah, and obviously she didn't have like her gun or whatever either. This one was really, it was really interesting just for me trying to square like what is going on, because this was also one where it's like the ending of this one, I was like, what is this? Does this have ramifications? The question with all of these are kind of like, how one-off are they, and how much do they have ramifications for like the wider Alan Wake universe?
I have to think everything is canon. That's my natural inclination.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the last one kind of makes that explicit.
Yeah, that's true. But this one was a bit slower. It was more puzzly. You're back in Coffee World. You're walking around. You have to backtrack to talk to Tim's there, and you have to solve a few puzzles, learn about some prime numbers to open up a safe and get in, and that kind of stuff. But it was interesting in that just the fact that you're Jessie. Like, if you were any other character but Jessie, this would probably be a drag. I think just the fact that they're combining the IP in this drastic way before Control 2 comes out even too, right? Like, who knows what's going to happen in Control 2 with its combination of Alan Wake now, because obviously those two worlds are collided. We've seen that already in Alan Wake 2. It's kind of setting up expectations for being Jessie in a post-Remedy universe, more explicit world.
Yeah.
But it was probably my least favorite, but it was still good.
Yeah, the structure of this one was just annoying because you're just trying to get into a warehouse and you keep having to, you go there and then you have to solve a puzzle and like go somewhere else. You know, Coffee World is fun. Yeah. But like the breaker stuff was the best part of this one. And then obviously the third one, you know, it blows that out of the water.
Yeah.
But okay, so at the end, just to say it, so she's going looking around for information on her brother, the agency that took him or whatever. Tim keeps being like, don't drink the coffee. And then you like get into this thing and he has drank the coffee and he's like hypnotized and he's, you know, totally brainwashed. And then you like go down this big ladder and Alan is like hovering there among mountains of coffee thermoses.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was just like, what's going on? Like, I really did not know what to make of that ending, other than, I guess it's her just, you know, it's like Alan is the god of this world, kind of. Whatever he writes turns into some form of reality.
Yeah.
And so this is just, what was the Control DLC with Alan Wake? Like, what happened in that?
It was really focused on the doctor who lied to Alan, who was the one that had that expensive retreat place where famous people came and like learned to get better. He was like the big scary monster in that for most of it. It was like, oh no, what's he become? Because ultimately when the AWE happens, the FCC goes and like tidies up and makes it so it seems like what happened didn't happen and tries to get control of whatever event happened and all that kind of stuff. But the doctor was kind of like a missing piece because he never really knew what happened to him after the events of Alan Wake 1. So that was filling in those cracks a bit. And it was Jesse fighting him and learning more about what was going on Alan Wake's. Like, you got a lot of context on what happened between Alan Wake 1 and 2 to those characters that got left behind, who weren't Alan or his wife, post AWE. And that's kind of what it was for. You fight him, where it's like she hears visions and sees like the old director talking to her or something like that. Alan did pop up a few times talking to her in that way in the DLC. What he said, I can't really remember. But what I was kind of thinking maybe, so at the end of this DLC episode, Alan's in that big tank, and that's the tank that her brother Dylan was in at the end of Control.
Oh, that's right.
So he's hanging in that tank in the same way Dylan is. And I really think the thermoses are just them joking about how
about coffee, yeah.
Well, also the fact that we all really want that diner thermos that I Am 8-Bit sells out in 8 seconds.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that's a reference to that, because when I went down the bunker and there was just rows and rows of thermoses, like so many that everyone in the world could have their own thermos kind of thing. I think they're joking about that because I really want one of those thermoses. This is why I know so much about that. So I have Twitter alerts on for I Am 8-Bit and also Remedy to see if they'll announce when the thermoses are getting restocked, because eventually they were like, oh, it's going to be 2 per person. They're coming back in June. And then they were like, okay, now it's 1 per person. Like, we really want to make sure everyone has one. We understand everyone wants this thermos. Please be patient with us, blah, blah, blah. So I think the thermoses are kind of a joke. It's just like, here's your freaking thermoses. So
yeah, I mean, and even notwithstanding the merch, it's like the series is just so obsessed with coffee. I mean, There's a thing in the third one where you can pick to either drink tea or coffee, and I chose tea, and they were like, well, I don't know why you didn't pick your favorite drink, coffee, but okay, you drink tea.
I chose coffee because I felt like they wanted me to. But yeah, I think him being in Dylan's space was maybe just, again, the same theory of like, this is another writing attempt of Alan trying to get saved, using Jesse's search of her brother as an excuse to find him by mistake.
To find him. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's,
because
I was the most confused by that one, though.
It is because it's like Jesse has basically the most agency and knowledge of the world of anyone outside Alan.
Yes.
In this, it's like, if anyone can figure out what he's dealing with, it's either Alice, his wife, or Jesse. But Jesse is like the one who's like successfully fought stuff before and won. Yeah,
true. It's always the women in these games who figure out how to get out of the dark place in 8 seconds.
It's absurd male writers who like can't help but write themselves into hell and everyone else, and the woman's like,
I don't want any help.
Deal with it.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. Do you know the thing? This is an aside. But do you know the thing about like how like a huge amount of great film editors are women. You know, that like there obviously there's a whole, you know, tangled web of gender dynamics and misogyny, but it's like a lot of the great directors that we think about are men, but like a lot of their movies are edited by women, and it's like more than you would think, including like big action movies that we typically think of as like man stuff. And it really does, it feels like this is playing in the same realm, where it's like, if you want me to make this good, it just can't be your like dumb thoughts sprayed out all over this book. You know, you need someone to rein you in a little bit. Someone
to contextualize it and put it in a row and make it a thing to look at. That's interesting.
Okay, anyway, the third one. The Money.
The Money, the best one. So this is what makes me, I need to go play Quantum Break now. I've needed a kick in the butt to play Quantum Break. This was it, because I really wanted to know all the context of what was happening. So it starts off in oh my God, the funniest way, where it's Sean who plays Tim in Quantum Break. That's his character's name, right? Tim?
Well, isn't he Tim in...
Or he's Tim in Control? Alan Wake.
Oh, yeah, in Alan Wake, because he's Tim Breaker.
Tim Breaker. What's his name in Quantum Break? I can't remember, but he's playing that character, but they can't say that because they don't have the rights to Quantum Break.
But they get more explicit about it.
Yeah.
Than that. He's Jack Joyce in Quantum Break.
Gotcha.
Or yes, he's Jack Joyce. Yeah, but they say, I mean, they get explicit to the point where he's like, are we going to do the FMVs again? And then Sam Lake is like, yeah, like last time.
Yeah, it's very fun. They're doing the most fun stuff with real human faces not being copyright infringement. Like, there's a real big difference between personality rights and copyrights. And while you can argue that Sam Lake's face is Max Payne, he's also himself, and he's allowed to do stuff with his face, especially within his own studio. Where the line is to he crosses into Max Payne copyright infringement is a very unexplored area of entertainment law that I think they're really pushing the envelope on, and it's very fun to see. Like, when he does the Max Payne face, has he pushed the line from Sam Lake to Max Payne, where we don't care about his personality rights to copyright?
That's just the face he made.
That's just his face,
tell
man.
Sam Lake that he can't make a face.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, but also we see another like weird part of this is Sam Lake as voiced by Sam Lake.
Yes, yeah.
As opposed to every other time in Alan Wake or Max Payne, where it's his face but voiced by James McCaffrey, and McCaffrey has sadly died. Mm-hmm. But also, like, it is, when you see him, you're not like, oh, that's Alex Casey or that's Max Payne. It's like, oh wait, no, this one is Sam Lake.
Yeah, distinctly.
And they call him Sam, you know, it's like they say his name.
Yeah, and even when he's in Alan Wake 2, it's always FMV, it's always him sitting on the couch with Moreland, but they call him Sam, and
he's dubbed.
Right? Yeah, and he's dubbed. But yeah, this was him actually speaking. And I also love how self-aware they are with like all their acronyms. They're like, the acronyms are getting to be a bitch too much. And then Sam goes on this rant. He's like, but you have the DVM that goes into the FVP.
Yeah, he's like, they're a little mystery.
He's like very much just like enjoying himself and explaining it, entrenched in the lore of this thing he's created, trying to explain it to somebody. It's like how it feels when I'm trying to explain Remedyverse stuff to somebody who's like, I'm kind of interested in Alan Wake 2. Like, do you think I'd like it? It's like, buckle in. I have to give you 20 proper nouns.
We all turn into Charlie Day, Pepe Sylvia. You know, it's like you can't do it and not be like pointing at a whiteboard.
It's very true. And yeah, so that was a very fun place to start it off with. And then they just snowball it forward to essentially what is my favorite thing that Remedy does, which is just like meta-narrative insanity, which multimedia meta-narrative stuff, which is like what we talked about in the deepest dive, which is what if we combined meta-narrative fourth wall breaking winky faces to multimedia like explorations of different forms of artistic expression.
Yeah, and actually what it's doing here is interesting in that Alan Wake 2 does not do this, where it's like Alan Wake 2 has FMVs and has gameplay, and it often mixes the FMVs and the gameplay in like really cool ways. But this is doing different graphical styles, which I don't think. I mean, they don't do that in Control. They don't do that in Max Payne. So I think this is like pretty new for them.
Yeah. It's like, it's going, now it's intermediate. Now it's not just multi, it's going into one of the forms and stretching it out into different platforms also. They're insane.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
So the plot is that Tim Breaker, he thinks he's playing, or, you know, he thinks he's playing Tim Breaker in a video game that Poison Pill Studio is making, which is obviously like the opposite of Remedy, which is very funny. And then he goes to his dressing room and he sees a version of himself that's dead, and he's like insanely, he's like, oh, what a funny prank for Sam Lake to play on me. Which is like going to a room and seeing your own dead body, like a perfect copy, and being like, what a good prank. And Jesse shows up, and Jesse's like, oh man, we didn't reach him in time. Door is killing versions of you. And then he gets sucked into another world where he's, you know, at first you're just kind of like in the forest, in like a very Alan Wake 2 style forest.
Yeah.
And you have to find these kind of, I don't know,
tetrahedrons, or they wrote it down at one point. Did you read the thing on the ground of where he got shot in the first?
No, I was actually about to, and then it took me to the next scene before I could read it.
Oh no, okay, that it was really funny. It's literally a script for the scene happening, but it's like a game. It's like a game script, but it looks like a film script, but it's essentially like, you know, Sean walks in, sees it describes exactly what's happening. And then it's like, if player clicks on this script, and then it like shows the line he said when you click on the script, like, oh, what's this? And then it's like, description of script on the ground. 1-1 this exact script on ground. And it's just like detailing it in a game dev way while still looking like a film script.
That's very funny.
Very fun. Sorry, keep going.
Okay. So you have to find these tetrahedrons to power up what looks like a PlayStation Move controller that you're holding. Yes. You know, some kind of thing of power. While you're doing that, you hear shots and you find another version of your dead body. Also, in this world, he's got like long hair and a beard. He looks like Robin Williams, like what year is it kind of guy. Like he's just been out there for a while. But in each level, you basically have to find this shape and put it into a TV. And so he does it the first time to escape, but he realizes it takes him to a hotel, and he quickly realizes that, like, oh, I was thinking about Door. So Door, the character. And so it took me to this place that's very strongly associated with Door. Mm-hmm. And then you're back in the hotel, and you have to do this whole hotel puzzle lobby thing. It's all in black and white. This part was a puzzle that I wasn't super fond of.
The clocks pointed away. I figured it out without even looking to the left thing that told you which room is where. I just remembered, oh, I've been in the noon clock, I've been in the 3 o'clock clock, and I haven't been in this one, so I guess I'll go in here. And then I realized that there was like an index that told me what room was what clock. I was like, oh, okay. It wasn't a puzzle. It was literally just notice the signs or not, and they were clocks.
But it was a puzzle because you did have to go to them in a specific order, and I went to them in a wrong order.
See, maybe I by mistake did the perfect order. I just was like, that was a bit boring.
Whatever. You know, it's interesting. Something that I found kind of interesting about it is that Door has not been like a frightening character throughout the game, but they start doing like jump scares with him where they're like flashing the door.
It's the same scratch jump scares for Alan that we get with Door.
And, so you get through this hotel, another sequence of puzzles. I do love that they have, they're playing the Finnish music in one of them. Mm-hmm. And, like, whenever that song is playing, I just stop and listen to it because it's so good. Mm-hmm. But then you So then you transition from that. You're like, I'm thinking really hard. I'm going to go back to the studio. Which happens first? Is it the 2D game or the comic book?
I think the comic book's next, and he learns that he's good at focusing.
Right. Okay. So he focuses really hard, and he goes and he wakes up in a comic book in the style of basically the Max Payne cutscenes. And it's like, my thoughts written out loud in yellow text, and it like says that above him. And it's doing very much this thing where like Max Payne realizes that he's in a video game. Like it's incredibly meta. But Jesse's there, and she tells him like, hey, you're here. They're looking for versions of you. I thought it was a different version, but I think you're actually the main guy because you are so good at going between dimensions.
Yeah.
Which was funny because I was like, he's so good at it. He just had to think of a place and go there. But apparently not everyone can do that.
I know. I kind of liked how it was giving some, because a lot of the joke of Alan Wake is Alan Wake is he's so special. He's Alan Wake, the writer, capital W. Isn't he special? And then he's like just not very good of a writer.
Yeah, he's not that great.
So like everyone was calling Sean and this the actor, capital A. Like, we've got to get the actor. The actor is blah blah blah. So I was kind of thinking maybe it's like he's method acting or something. Like his ability to act is allowing him to traverse the dark place in a very unique way, in the same way Alan's writing lets him morph the dark place, was what I thought they were kind of saying, because the dark place takes creative expression and tries to use that to infiltrate the real world. So in the same way a writer would write their way out of the dark place, he's like trying to act his way out, I guess.
Yeah, that maybe he's so good at assuming different identities that he can then jump between these.
Yeah.
You know, the whole reason that Ben doesn't trust actors because they're liars.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Jesse tells him he's really good, and I feel like at this point she's not at the Federal Bureau of Control. It's called something else.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is, but it's like a building from
our
Control.
something corporation, the reverse something corporation. Yeah, but they're satirizing that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but it's like, it's satirizing, but it also is like, this is canon and the Federal Bureau of Control is canon, because what this one really is introducing is like, all of the multiverses are real. They are all connected.
Yeah.
You know, like it is the kind of like, you know, everything everywhere all at once. Like in this multiverse, you just made a different choice, and in this one, everything's the same, except instead of being called the Federal Bureau of Control, it's called this thing. But they're all legit. They're all real.
Yeah.
And then you focus again, and you go into a 2D side-scrolling game with a graphical style of like, gosh, Another World or something? Like, It's a really specific 2D where it's not traditional pixel art. It's more, it almost looks like the characters in Mortal Kombat 1 or something, where they're like real people who are pixelated.
The sound effects sounded really familiar too, but I couldn't place them. Like hissing sounds when you shoot, like, oh. But I was like, what's that from? But I couldn't place it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But this one, you know, it's like the gameplay was nothing. You just kind of stood there and shot people. But they did have like pixelated versions of the door jump scare popping up, which were also really good. And then you eventually get out of there, and you get to like the end of the world in this very, I look like a freaking like Dark Souls level, where you just have all of these like empty
shells,
tetrahedrals, you know, like all over, and it's, you're just kind of in this abyss, and you're running around and shooting people, and eventually you find another shape and can go through another TV, and then it's like, hey, you thought that was the void? No way, man.
Text-based
The void
adventure.
is a black screen text adventure.
I was so gagged. I loved that, and they started out with being like, you realize that your thoughts are just that exactly, like written outward, like that is all you are. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so interesting, because that is all, like, if we were to take games and put it down to its purest form, it's where it started with text-based adventure stuff. We literally went from 3 to 2 to what could a game be 1D? It's text-based adventure. That's what it would be. And they really played with that too. It wasn't like it was just a gag. Like, it was a really interesting, well-written text-based adventure thing I was going through.
Yeah, and you know, they're even doing stuff where it's like the speed that the text is written out is like part of the storytelling.
True.
And there's a whole thing where I wasn't sure if it would. My guess is you'd have to do both either way, but there's a part where it's like focus on the door or focus on Jesse, and then if you focus on Jesse, you go to like a different. Another alternate reality with Jesse, who is like not engaged in being, you know, in this multiverse stuff at all. She's just like a lady, and you like live out a whole life with her where it's like she's a dancer, and like, oh, should she do her dance performance? But she's been pushing herself really hard and she hurt her ankle, and you're just kind of like briefly in this completely different world, and then like the story kind of forces its way back in, where it's like she keeps having nightmares of alternate realities, and you're like, oh God, I can't escape it. And yeah, so eventually you have to like, you take her necklace and you go back and you get into the door, and then, I mean, I was popping off. They have like ASCII art of the door to the writer's room opening, and it's like, you know, written in, I think of this as like in old GameFAQs guides. You know, they would have like the Legend of Zelda thing drawn out in like, you know, just keyboard symbols. And that's what this is. It's ASCII art. And it was like the image of Alan in that room drawn out in these symbols, which is kind of like the purest form of what he is, because he's literally just trapped there writing, and now he's like made of writing. It was
that's
so
a good
sick.
point. That's a good point. I'm interested to hear that there was a whole different other little sub story, because I just focused on Door from the start and moved through the story that way.
That's funny. Yeah, no, you can like go and like live out a life with Jesse.
Oh my God. See, in mine, I'm on the ground and I'm starving, and then a version of me hands me a seed and then disappears. And then I plant the seed, the tree grows, a fruit falls, I eat the fruit,
wow.
and then I hand the seed to somebody on the ground who is also me. So it like creates a loop within the text-based adventure. Like, that was me 5 minutes ago who got the seed from the me in the future. So they're trying to do the spiral loop thing again, like for fun. And then that moves you forward to the end, where I saw the same key art with like all the keyboard buttons to make that. I was like screeching the whole time, like, this is so cool. I love, oh my God. But that's fun that you like get to be with Jesse, because remember in the web comic, he like says to her, he's like, have we been together before, whatever?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, what you're feeling is an echo, which is a memory of another alternate universe. So maybe that text-based adventure memory thing that you went through is the memory he was feeling when he was in the webcomic.
I think so. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, and so then that's basically where it ends, right? Does anything happen after that?
It just kind of ends there.
Yeah, you go into a wormhole, and then it does say, you know, in loving memory of James
that was
McCaffrey,
really nice.
And it just plays this like it's from, I think, the hotel level of Alan Wake 2, but is this great gravelly monologue of like, you know, I was trapped in a spiral and all the people, and it's just like, it's a really good McCaffrey line delivery, and I was really glad that they had that tribute to him.
I'm so sad he passed away, because this really feels like the precipice of him exploding into all kinds of different types of projects. It's like he was so good in Alan Wake 2, and you know, he has all this rich history with Remedy that was getting used so efficiently with his skills with voice acting, not just in Max Payne, but now as Alex Casey. It's just such a sin, because I really, just too bad.
Yeah, it is a true loss. It's really sad.
But oh my God, I love Remedy so much, and I'm so excited for the next DLC. I think it's called The Lake House, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm curious to...
Yeah.
That one seemed, even just if I had to go off the names of the 2 DLC, this one kind of felt like have fun, go ahead, run around, like enjoy yourself. And it kind of seems like the Lake House might be like pay attention, lore, like this is going to affect stuff sort of one.
That was my guess as well, that it'll be more story focused. Maybe it'll be about like Alice.
That'd be cool.
Because Alice is, you know, there's a big twist with Alice at the end of Alan Wake 2. Mm-hmm. This was, you know, for what this DLC was, it did exactly what I wanted, where it was just like a reminder of how much I liked Alan Wake 2 and them getting to kind of flex their creative muscles and just be like, hey, we're having fun, but like no other studio is having fun like this.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting this from anywhere else.
It was fun. It was fun for them to have a time frame limitation like that, like an hour. 45 minutes to an hour, make a show, because so much of the best, that style of media, like, you know, like the Twilight Zone, they were trying to encapsulate what a mystery that gets delivered to you in 45 minutes feels like. And we're used to that sort of feeling, because up till now, that's kind of how we received those sort of mystery, weird, you know, like the song even is like a solar system in your soup. Like, let's write a 45-minute episode if there was a solar system in someone's soup. Go. Like, just do like those kind of thought experiments. It's fun that now that's getting crunched onto them. Well, they're doing it to themselves, you know. It's like, we just want to release 3 rapid fire Twilight Zone episodes in our own world. Go for it. And they just clearly had so much fun with it. It was so good. And it's just making me have an Alan Wake hole in my heart even more right now, to be honest.
That poor guy. He's just trapped down there.
He's just waiting. He's just trapped. He had like 30 minutes where he got out in Alan Wake 2 and right back. Poor guy.
This was just a clip from our Patreon exclusive podcast called Bonus Pod. If you support MinnMax on Patreon at the $5 tier, you unlock Bonus Pod each and every week. Haley McLean is joined by cohorts to talk about whatever they want. It's kind of the sister show, the companion show to the MinnMax Show podcast. So there's even more content in here. Also, we take calls from members of the community, and we can really dive into the weeds on stuff. So if you want to more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every week, support MinnMax on Patreon at the $5 tier. Thanks so much.